We're back, and we're on the couch this time instead of in front of it.
Changing it up. Big changes.
Today we are talking about our proposals and proposing to each other.
Yes. Big moment in our relationship. Not a nerve-wracking moment, I wouldn't say. But
No. More nerve-wracking because I wanted it to be perfect. Not necessarily, I didn't know what her answer would be, if that makes sense.
yeah, because typically my take on proposing is usually ask when you know for certain that she's going to say yes.
Yes. So we're going to get into our stories because it's a little bit unique because, we're two more feminine lesbians. And so we each did a proposal. So we will get into that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will start. This is back in 2019.
19.
So we had been dating just at like a year, I guess just under a year when we started like really talking about marriage and like popping the question, rings, things like that. We always knew we were going to get married from the very beginning, but we didn't really like seriously start considering it until like just shy of a year of dating.
Or it wasn't that we weren't seriously considering it. I think we just, that time, we didn't feel like the time was right until about 9-10 months in to our relationship.
Yeah, well,
At least personally for me.
We just didn't like really seriously think about like getting rings and things like that.
Yeah. Making the steps.
Yeah. So then about like 10-ish months in, we had kind of just been like, oh, let's, go ring shopping, just kind of like informally.
Just what kind of design are you into? Yeah.
Because we didn't even know like what size, what kind of design, like we didn't know anything. So we were like, let's just go try on some things because we don't know how long it'll take to get a ring. We don't know what we'll decide on.
And how much it'll cost and all that.
Yeah. So this is about like 10 months in and we were living in Nashville. So we went to like 3-ish ring shops within the Nashville area.
Yeah.
Just like trying on different styles, sizes, things like that. And the last place we went to, we both fell in love with, like each individually fell in love with a ring at this place.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be the same setting of the ring, the same ring, just a different cut of the diamond.
Yeah.
But we knew we wanted to do natural diamonds. That was just our preference.
Nothing against lab-grown diamonds.
Or moissanite or whatever you want to do, but that was just our choice. And so we really liked these. And at this jeweler, it was like you choose the diamond you want and then they put it into the setting, if that makes sense. It's not like you just like buy the ring. You kind of make the ring, I guess.
And how perfect it was. It's not like we planned on them being complementary or very similar. We just happen to have fallen in love with settings that are identical, just a different shape stone. People always ask, oh, did you guys plan that? And it's no, actually we didn't.
It happened that way.
Yeah. But it's great that they complement each other really well.
Yeah, no, they do look really good together. But at the shop, we both, were there and talking to the same lady, and we both kind of left it at like, oh yeah, we love them, but we'll see, like we'll shop around, we'll come back. And then we never really talked about it again, I don't think. Because I think we both knew, like, I'm going to buy Whitney that ring without talking to each other. She was going to buy me that ring. So we just, like, both just didn't bring it up again to each other. So that was the last we'd kind of talked about it.
Although we didn't know when. I knew you were going to buy it. I had no clue when. Same for me, you to me. It was just kind of like, well,
okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then I'd say I probably went back. I think I went back first, like after the fact of proposing and everything. We talked about it. I think I had gone back first, maybe like 2 weeks later. I can't really remember at this point, but about like 2 weeks later.
Less than a month.
Yeah. And I had said, okay, like that's the ring that Whitney wants. Let me pick out the diamond. So I like chose, the clarity and color and cut and all that. And then she got it to like making the actual ring. And I think she said it would take maybe like a month, 2 weeks to a month, something like that. I want to say.
I don't remember.
Around that time frame to like actually have the ring in hand so that I could, plan the proposal accordingly.
Yeah.
And then come to find out she went back maybe like 3 weeks after we went and looked at the rings and
And the lady that we were both using, she, I mean, as tight-lipped as ever. She didn't say anything about Alex coming in before.
Yeah, she was nice.
She was great, yeah.
So we each individually got the rings, like, secretively. So it was in, like, the process of being made. And I had actually already been planning a proposal right around the time that we had started looking at rings, I believe. I had been planning it for like a few months in the future. Our 1 year anniversary is like mid-April-ish.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to do it shortly after that. So I had been planning the proposal like end of April.
And back up, when we were starting to talk about proposals, Alex had said, you know, if you don't mind, when we do propose, and we can kind of go over this too, we both wanted to be proposed to.
Well, it wasn't really even like a do you mind. It was just kind of like, yeah, that's how we'll do it. Like, we both want to be proposed to. We both want to have that moment. We both want to ask the other to marry them.
Right. Because for us, it's that experience of looking at somebody on their, you know, I mean, she got on one knee, and we'll go over that in a little bit too, but it's like, I want to experience the same thing that you experienced, just from a different perspective.
So I was the one that wanted to be the first one to propose, but obviously I had no control over that because I didn't know when she was going to propose. I just had a feeling that I would probably be the first one, and I wanted to be the first one.
So it worked out because
Yes.
she was the first one.
Yes. But we had talked previous to even like being serious about getting engaged, like that it was important to us that we both had that moment of proposing to the other one. Just because in our situation, we're both, I would say, equally feminine, presenting, so it just made sense that way.
Yeah.
There wasn't one that would like only be doing the proposing, I guess.
Yeah, because I think not only did I want to experience being proposed to, but I also wanted the experience of asking her to marry me.
Yeah.
So it was almost like we wanted the best of both worlds, and we could get the best of both worlds.
I'll say I was more excited about asking her to marry me because I was just excited to plan that and like show her how special I wanted to make it and show her how much I loved her, and so I was excited about that. And I would have been sad if I wasn't able to plan a proposal myself.
Yeah, and I will say the pressure was on because she's great at that. Like,
it is my forte.
It is her
like that.
forte. I mean, I knew I was going up against like a really good planner when it comes to stuff like that.
I'd say that's how and we'll do another video on this, but that's how I show my love, is like planning special moments, special events, like doing romantic gestures. I'd say that's how
That's her love language.
Yeah.
One
that's
of
how
her
I
love.
show my love, not perceive love, but that's how I show my love.
Yeah, and I'm not as good at that. And
She's not
so,
bad at it. It's just not.
No.
She does. It's not like her thing, I guess.
No, and so I knew because I kind of already figured she would be the one to propose first, and I knew I was just.
But that
the
was
pressure
okay,
was
though.
on.
From my perspective, that was okay with me. Like I knew that mine would be a little bit more over the top and grandiose and a little bit more planned out, but that's just like us in general.
Yeah. That's
so
our personalities.
I wouldn't have expected the same from her, and that's what made it special, is that it was simple and sweet and very unique to her, the way she proposed to me. So I wouldn't have wanted it any different, I guess.
I will say though, like her proposal, which she'll describe and go through it with you, was absolutely amazing. Like, and I'm not just saying that because it was her proposing to me. If I had seen another couple and that was the way that they were proposed to, it's perfect.
And I'll say we both planned the proposal to be unique to our relationship and who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
We knew we wanted it to be a private moment. Mm-hmm. We knew we wanted to capture the moment. And we knew that we wanted time to also process, like, being engaged.
An experience, together.
Like, it wasn't one of and some people want to do it with friends and family and then have a party afterwards, and that's amazing. That
That's
just
awesome.
isn't our personality, and we knew that going into it, and so I knew that I wanted a personal, unique moment just with us two, and I knew she probably felt the same way.
Yeah.
So that was kind of leading up, and I had known, like I said, like probably around the time we were shopping for rings, so about like 9-ish months in, like, oh, I'm going to start planning my proposal because it's going to take a little while for me to figure out what I want to do, plan it all out, figure out all the logistics. So I kind of, I guess, decided on a date around the time that I knew her ring would be coming in. Mm-hmm. And the date I chose was actually April 25th, which on Miss Congeniality is like what she says is the perfect date.
Yeah.
It's not too hot and not too cold. All you need is a light sweater.
jacket.
Light jacket. I hadn't, like, that wasn't intentional. It just happened to be that way.
Yeah.
But I had started a few months in advance. And I believe I originally wanted to do, like, on a rooftop somewhere. So, like, Nashville skyline was in the background. And have it be on, like, an open balcony type thing or bar or something along those lines. But I couldn't really find a great place. I looked at, like, hotels and Airbnbs, like bar, like renting out an area in the bar, and there just weren't a lot of great options. And
I'm sure nowadays there would be.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because the city has grown so much, but...
Yeah, this is back in, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
so Nashville was under a lot of construction, so there were a lot of, like, cranes and stuff, and so I was like, this is just... It's going to be a picture of, like, a bunch of cranes in the background, and it's going to be loud with construction.
Or a lot of other people, because you can't rent out a certain portion.
So I kind of forfeited that idea, but I still wanted that kind of aspect of, like, a private area. So then I started looking at rental locations. So Airbnbs, and then there was some other website I had found where you can, like, rent out houses and, like, certain areas to plan, like, events and things along those lines. So then I ended up finding it's like almost a kind of like a cabin, but not really, like a modern cabin, I guess.
Yeah, I would.
A-frame, and it just had like a wall of windows on the back.
And it truly was in the woods.
Yeah, so it was like 20 minutes outside of Nashville, and it was surrounded by just woods and greenery. No one was around.
Yeah, you don't have any neighbors.
Yeah, and it was literally like a wall
Of windows.
And so I knew, I was like, that would be a really cool backdrop.
And in front of the wall of windows was a porch. So
Yeah.
it was, it was like kind of setting up for the perfect scene.
Yeah, and that's kind of what ignited my idea of like, okay, I think this is what I'm going to do. And then I knew I wanted some kind of like sign or way to ask her to marry me without being like
Cheesy.
gimmicky. Yeah, cheesy, gimmicky. So I found like huge marquee letters that said "Marry Me."
Like almost metal. Like they
Yeah.
were metal, like kind
Yeah.
of old and cool looking.
Yeah, kind of industrial.
Industrial.
I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to
But they were huge. They were like 4 feet tall or something like that. Each letter was like 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
And it was a local
Artist.
that had them, and I reached out to him and asked him about the date and everything, and he said that would be fine. So I knew I wanted to like set those up, and then I knew I wanted a photographer because I wanted to capture the moment, and so I knew that was the only person that I'd really want there, but I wanted him like hidden in the
Woods.
greenery. Yeah, so it was still like a private moment.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to feel like a
Staged.
spectator. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And so then I did a few other details. I got like balloons with our initials on them, and I got us t-shirts made. I got us like dinner for that night, because that was another thing is I knew once I proposed we could like stay in the cabin that night and have like, an intimate moment with just us two, like so taking it all in, soaking it in. And
Got
so,
champagne.
Yeah, champagne. I feel like there was other. I got flowers, a bouquet of flowers.
It was really special.
Yeah, but I just knew I wanted it to be like a very intimate setting with just us two. And it was, because then so another caveat to all this is we have the exact same work schedule, but like she would sometimes we were in this like time period where she would kind of like pick up some. Because,
I gotta pay for the ring, right?
well, yeah. Or because I think some days we had opposite. So she would like pick up if I was working, and I would pick up if she was working, if that makes sense. We could work together.
Yeah.
And so I was like trying to be like, block this day off without it being obvious. So I gave her like 3 dates, and I was like, block all of these 3 dates off. So if she did think it was for the proposal, she could
Wouldn't know which one.
Yeah, she wouldn't know which date. And that day leading up, I don't even know what I said I was doing. Something, I have no idea. And I just gave her like an address and was like, meet me here at this time. I'm sure it was obvious at that point, but whatever.
It was. I mean, I not. But the thing is she did that. That was very. It's not unique. It was very typical for Alex to plan things that are a surprise. So, did I have a suspicion? Yes. Was I 100% sure that this was when she was going to propose? No, I was not.
Well, it was just because obviously we had been ring shopping semi-recently, so like we kind of both knew it may be coming up.
Yeah.
And so I was already there setting up at the house with the photographer and with the letters and everything.
Yeah.
And then I think I had her location or had her text me like when she was almost there. And that's when I like covered her eyes and like walked her out to the like glass wall with the Marry Me letters. And then when we got out there is when I uncovered her eyes. And obviously at that point she knew what was going on.
Yes. Yes.
And I got like super nervous. And I like...
But she's never a nervous person, so...
No, and...
It was endearing.
I like forgot everything I was going to say. And I even like looked at her and I was like, I'm really nervous. And I can't remember what I was going to say. I don't even remember what I said. I blacked out. I have no idea if I even talked. I have no clue. I said something, I guess. And then I got down on one knee. And when I opened the box, it was opened sideways.
So,
yeah, sideways box.
And then she just went, and will you?
I blocked it out, honestly.
I don't even
remember.
It was cute.
And so, yeah, and then, the photographers in the background taking pictures as all this is going on. And, yeah.
And then we continued afterward taking pictures with now at that point I realized there was a photographer.
So we kind of like married our engagement photos at the same time, like as our engagement. So we didn't do like separate engagement photos or anything like that.
Yeah. It was like in the moment real photos.
Yeah. And so then, that night we stayed at the house. We had lasagna that I had like made, already ready to go. And I was originally going to do a private chef to come and cook for us, but couldn't really find one, and it was like a whole thing, and I was like, you know what, we'd probably want to be alone anyways.
Yeah.
So that was my proposal. I think that's everything.
I think so. I think it was again, perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And then after that I thought, oh goodness.
Had you already been planning?
Yes.
So you already kind of knew
which is
what
really,
you were going to do?
Yeah, well, so what's really interesting is you started this whole thing off by saying you wanted to do like a rooftop or a balcony. I was on the same page. I was looking high and low. There were apartments that were, at the top floor that had
I'm pretty
these
sure we were
big
looking
balconies.
at the exact same places.
Yeah, and I checked them out, and what they're looking over is a bunch of cranes and all of that, and I'm like, why would I don't want that, and it's going to have all this loud noise possibly, and I was so bewildered by how many of them were literally great location-wise, but not a good backdrop, or they weren't available on the days or the nights that I wanted. And then looking at, rooftop bars, same thing. Nobody was willing to block off a certain portion. And so I kind of was hitting one wall after the other, trying to find a place that was exactly what I wanted. And then I thought, well, could I go to the botanical gardens? No, I mean, nothing against anybody else that has done that, but it seemed like it has been done many times, and great backdrop for pictures, but not really unique, and not secluded.
I would say it didn't fit our vibe.
No, and
not that I was the one planning it, but like looking back now that she tells me this.
Yeah, and I said the same thing to myself. I was like, it doesn't feel right to us, and doesn't feel right to what I would want to do. So, and so I was really going through a list of options, and I was not finding something that was good and right and available, and checking all the boxes. But it's funny, we were doing the same thing initially. And then I kept going back to kind of the same concept of, I just want this to be intimate, and I want it to be us. I want it to be just us, so we can celebrate together. And I also wanted a photographer, and the same photographer was the one that did my shoot, or for my proposal to her, shot the same, or same photographer shot us.
And I think after the fact you had said you had your own photographer, but then like they fell
Mm-hmm.
through or something, and you liked the one that I had used, so you reached out
Yes.
to him and you were like, by chance, are you available?
Right, because I kind of wanted, if we're gonna use like engagement photos, I didn't want it to be like a completely different, because every photographer has their own vibe, you know, and I didn't want it to be like, oh, that is so different, and you can't really marry them together, and so mine just happened to fall through, and I reached out to him, and yeah, he was available, and he happened to be gay, so it made it a lot easier and more comfortable for us. So anyways, I was really running out of, number one, not time, because I didn't feel pressured or rushed, but I did want to propose to her, and I knew she was going to probably propose at some point. And so my family that has a home in Tennessee they live on a bunch of land, and the backdrop is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And so I had talked to them and said, am I able to use this land, and kind of set up a little moment. I don't know, how do you describe, like
It was like a cabana,
like an organic
linen, and it had like pillows, you know,
and a cool rug, and
kind of like an upscale picnic with like a cabana is how I would describe it.
And with the wind took it, it would just be kind of flowy. And so my family had helped me build this wooden cabana, and attach all of the fabric and whatnot. And then I had a fire pit for s'mores, and I think champagne or wine.
Yeah, champagne, I think, maybe.
Yeah. And so I had planned this in my head. I'd gone over a couple days before, a day she was working, and kind of did a run through of how hard it would be to set this up, and it was not that bad. But again, I was like, I had to make sure I was still looking good while I was setting this up, and not sweating, and my hair not falling out, you know, the curl and all of that. So that was fine. The run through was fine. And then I had set up the day for her to get her hair and nails done, while I was setting all of this up. And then after that, I gave her the address, and she figured out it was my family's address. And
this is happening. Her proposal was probably 3 weeks after mine, I'd say.
yeah,
Give or take, something like that.
yeah. And so, you know, I set it all up. I'm waiting for her, and this is a little like behind the scenes stressor moment. So the photographer had said, okay, set it up so that the sun is a certain direction where you're going to be proposing, and you know, whatever. And so I did, and then he shows up, and he's like, oh no, we have to change the direction. I mean, like, not like a couple degrees. It was like completely switch it. And I was like, she's going to show up in like literally 10 minutes. Like, there's a lot to do. And he was like, yeah, we just have to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Because if we didn't, it would be like the sun's just in the wrong direction. Those pictures would turn out poorly. So I was like, okay, all right. All what was going on in my head was freaking out, you know, just because of that. And so we switched it last minute. And at that point, kind of all of that had taken the nerves away, because I was so focused on just getting that reoriented. And so she drove up, and I went to go meet her at the car, and I didn't close her eyes because she had already seen it driving up. And so I walked her up, and you know, I got down on one knee, and I partly remember what I said. I mean,
She had like a good speech, and I remember thinking, okay, she showed me up on that one, because
well, I had to show you up on something, because your proposal was just like top notch. But it was perfect. But this was perfect to us because it was completely different. If we had done the same, it would have been like, okay, that seems like, you know, deja vu. But
yeah, kind of like we described earlier. Mine was like bigger in a way of like more in your face, more like we're getting married, like I'm proposing. Hers was more like sweet and
soft.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
which both are awesome and great. But
they just complemented each other well, I guess.
yeah. And I'm proud of my proposal, but
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And then afterward, we did s'mores and got pictures of that, and we walked up the bit. I don't even know if it's like a
Hill, I guess.
not meadow.
Kind of, yeah, like a meadow.
Okay, with like tall grass.
And I'll include pictures so y'all can kind of get a visual. But I'd say your proposal with the photographer was a lot. It was a lot more relaxed because
Playful.
we were already engaged at that point, so we were just kind of like having fun and just
enjoying everything at that point.
Whereas like at my proposal, it was like, oh, we're giddy, we're excited, and it was more like high energy, I guess.
Yeah.
And then at her proposal, it was more like relaxed, and we were just kind of going with the flow, having fun, I guess.
Yeah. And then I had planned on. I had one of those things that you light.
Oh, it's like one of those lanterns, that it floats up in the air.
You light it, and then So I had planned on
Paper
doing.
lantern?
Is that what it is?
Lantern.
Yeah. And I had planned on doing it in the meadow, but I don't know, either I got nervous with lighting something and then there being it not floating and dropping, and I was just so nervous about that.
Well, it was also during the day, and so I think we wanted to do it at night, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, you know what? We'll just do it when we get back to our house, because I had read you can write a wish or, whatever you want inside the lantern or on top of the lantern, and then it's a wish that you let go into the universe. Yeah. And so I had that planned, and then I also had our cat who's sitting right next to us. I had a shirt made that said,
My moms are getting married, I believe.
yeah, and I had it on her when we got home. She saw it, and that was cool too, because of course we like to include our animals.
Also, I will say, for both of our proposals, I had written her this like long letter, just kind of expressing my feelings and why I want to get married and everything. And then she did the same for me. When she proposed, she wrote me also a letter.
Which we're very sentimental in that way. We like to hold on to things that will take us back to memories in our relationship.
I have that letter still. We have a whole box actually from the very beginning of our relationship, including all of the letters we've ever written each other.
It's and now we have one for Shepherd as well. So we're very, very sentimental.
Yes.
And so when we got back home, I think I got sushi for us, and she saw the cat, our Georgie's T-shirt that she had on, and then we wrote a letter or a note inside that paper lantern and set it off, or sent it off. That was ours.
Yeah. And we were engaged for a year. Well, right under a year.
Yeah, I was saying that
like
quite.
10 months. And then that was when our wedding was 10 months later, obviously. But yeah.
So, 9 or 10 months, right?
Something like that. End of February.
Yeah. Good times.